Well, hello, folks. Uh, we had the blackout. Everybody knows about it by now. On the was it 28th, and it lasted for I don't know what it was, 12 or 16 hours, something like that. Um, it happened during the daytime. It was inconvenient, but not you know bad for us because we live in the countryside. And we're not on subways or elevators or escalators or electric trains or trams or things like that. When the lights go out, I mean, in the cities, it's really a nightmare. Very disruptive. We lost internet service, but not phone service. Um, it's it's a thing. These grids are complex and they have uh, points within them that can fail for many reasons. But it doesn't discount the possibility that it could be a cyber attack or a terrorist attack. There's all kinds of groups, extremist groups that would, you know, not hesitate to blow up um, electricity infrastructure to make a point. Um, the thing is, the minute it happens, an hour afterwards, you see reports when you look on your phone to before the 4G goes away to find out what happened. And people are saying CNN said it was the Russians, and people are blaming different extremist groups, and conspiracy theories start up immediately as they do when big events happen like this. But my thinking along the lines of Pascal's wager and Occam's razor and uh, Bayesian probability thinking, it's like, well, we're not going to know for quite a while exactly what happened. So chill. Out here, where I live, people just went to the neighborhood store and hung out and had a beer and talked and bought some supplies just in case. The government here recommended that we, fill up our water jugs and whatnot because they might have some problems with the water system during the blackout, and nobody knew at the time how long it might last. So you know you better err for caution and go ahead and get what you need and be ready. So we have battery banks and whatnot, so we can charge up things and so on. But the point I want to make is that you know it's not to the point yet where you can point a finger at anybody. So the Pedro Sanchez, uh, the leader in Portugal, said citizens must know that the government will get to the bottom of this. Measures will be taken and all private operators will be held accountable. That's an interesting uh, sentence there because um, our utility is owned by a multinational conglomerate out of China. So you just hope that the executives at that corporation are going to be responsible and make sure that everything locally is sorted out. I'm not saying that that's terribly dangerous, but from my point of view, I think things would be better if they were more locally resilient, if at all possible, right? On the other hand, these grids across Europe and the United States and so on are very complex. And uh, in many ways, it's more efficient to have them interconnected so that surplus energy can go where it's needed. Um, but of course, you have to upgrade the whole infrastructure to make it work in a Buckminster Fuller kind of way. And, he used to ponder that back in the day. Um, anyway, that investment must be made moving forward because, our energy future is precarious, and we need to invest now for the future and tomorrow. And instead of investing in tanks and airplanes and military buildups and so on, we shouldn't be wasting our time with any of that. We have more important things to worry about. Of course, it's big business, and the bureaucrats, are maintained in their positions largely by large corporations, corporate sponsors, military contractors, and so on. And so, you know, having a threat out there all the time, whether it's China or Russia, or North Korea, whatever, is useful because it keeps people worried about these threats. And so they don't pay attention to the problems that are right there in front of them, like housing and other things. And then they can make their backroom deals and keep their jobs and maintain the perception that they're needed by the community because of these military threats and whatever. I think that's largely unnecessary. Of course, people will debate that ad nauseum. If you're a hawk, everything is a war. But if you're not, it's like we really have better things to do. And these bureaucrats and politicians and corporate leaders should be thinking about solving problems that are important to normal people, to ordinary people. This doesn't happen that much anymore, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse as inequality grows, and people with more resources and power are going to try to create their little bug out cities and whatnot, where they can forego being a citizen of a nation state and paying taxes and whatnot, and live in a world where they can do whatever they want to do because they don't want mommy to tell them what to do. The government. I saw this thing about Idaho the other day, and the guy was the native Idaho, born in Idaho worker, was saying he doesn't like foreigners from other states coming into Idaho because they don't want any more people. It drives up the real estate prices. The real estate prices go up because it's a market. And if people are going to pay a native Idaho person $500,000 for a house they bought for $200,000, they're going to accept the $500,000. And if you can't afford it, tough luck. If you can afford it, you're hoping that it goes up to $800,000 because you want some equity so you can borrow money and go into debt and so on to get other stuff, a truck or whatever. They don't understand that the system is rigged, and it's systemic and structural things that are causing the problems, and cultural things as well, and not somebody from California moving to Idaho. You can't, if you want to have your walled off state, Idaho, then you can forego any benefits of belonging to the, Federation of the United States of America. That's up to you. If you want to get rid of the EU, the benefits that having a single currency might give Europe or whatever, you can just opt out and say, I don't want to be part of it. You can leave NATO if you wanted to. There are areas in the world where we must be networked because we live in today. We don't live in an Eric Lee hunter-gatherer world, and we're not going to. The population, if it gets down to 5,000 people on the planet, and 5,000 survivors walking around somewhere, they'll start hunting and gathering again. But in a complex society, global civilization that we have, tough luck. People are going to have to do things. They're going to have to think about energy grids, think about inequality, think about political corruption, and on and on and on and on and on. And then some people are going to want to do things about that, or join in the great game. And there's nothing that can be done about that because we're all modern techno-industrial, zero order humanists anyway. We were born and bred that way. And knowing that there was another way of life for the Denisovans or the um, Neanderthals or early Homo sapiens leaving Africa and going back to Africa and whatever, doesn't change the fact that we live here now and that the problems are our problems and require us to do something about them. So he goes on to say, to this end, the Spanish government has concluded a commission of inquiry led by Ministry of Ecological Transition. So it's a complex issue. If I say that I'm not surprised if, the United States issues a press release to all the networks saying Russia was behind the cyber attack. Russia blew up its own pipelines, gas pipelines to Europe, whatever like that. I wouldn't be surprised that they would do that, even if it's a lie, because we need to convince Europeans that the most important thing for them to do right now is build weapons, put them in warehouses, maintain them, and wait for some big conflagration to happen between Russia and Western Europe. The fact is, Russia can't afford to fight Western Europe, and Western Europe can't afford to fight Russia without the U.S. as a backstop, without the U.S. as cavalry coming in to save the day if they get in trouble. And we're not living in 1940 or 38 or whatever anymore. We're living in a world where North Korea, Pakistan, India, Israel, the United States, and France and England and Russia and Belarus and so on have nuclear weapons. It's not the same world it was back then. The wars won't be fought in the same way. It would be a long slugfest of horror with hypersonic missiles, kinetic impact and explosive missiles hitting things, low yield, perhaps, nuclear weapons until a strategic nuclear war broke out. Then you have nuclear winter, then you have a mass extinction, and so on and so forth. So it's utterly absurd and stupid to talk about it, plan about it, or think about it. It's a waste of time, and it only serves politicians who are maintained in their positions by the money from these large corporations. And not all the corporations are building a tank. There are all kinds of feeder corporations that feed into the military-industrial complex, including coking coal corporations and steel corporations, and on and on and on. Oil and gas, diesel fuel, all of these things that are necessary to arm Europe. It's big business. And if you help big business, they're going to help you. And for big business, quarterly profits are more important than anything else. So if somehow, solving problems for ordinary people was profitable, they would do it in a heartbeat, but it isn't. That's why you have to throw your vacuum cleaner away after 2 years. So we all know about this, but we don't care to address the underlying causes of the problems. Maybe they're too complex to think about. So we prefer to just kind of see what happens, wait and see. Do what you got to do day by day so that you can get on with life. Knowing about the polycrisis, knowing about the potential crash of global civilization, knowing what's going on in finance, global finance and banking and so on, doesn't really change anything. It doesn't really do anything. Some people criticize Naomi Klein's recent article about, fascism, a new kind of fascism and so on that was in The Guardian. Look, she's a writer. She writes books. The books are not bad books. That's her business, to write an article. I think she's an honest player. I think she does good work. The fact that she's not, a hunter-gatherer or whatever, shouldn't matter. She's going to get up in the morning and do what she has to do, which is write articles and books. And they're not that bad, actually. She's a fairly bright human being, and I think her heart is in the right place. Um, anyway, whatever. I don't have to defend Naomi Klein. She can defend herself quite well. So the other thing is, uh, the US government is all bullshit. I mean, people just bullshit constantly. The lies are just constant, they never end. The gaslighting is constant, the propaganda is constant. It's really low grade information you're going to get from the news networks. And I got caught up with, misreading some CNN posts and whatnot, and then looking at the social media backlash. But I'm telling you, it wouldn't surprise me a bit if they tried to lay this off on Russia and Putler, just to keep people in Europe focused on the idea that we've got to have a war with Russia, that it's inevitable. And strategically, according to what everyone in the US government is saying at the moment, they would love it if uh, you know, Europe put on their kit, strapped up, got tactical, and went to war with Russia, so that they wouldn't have to worry about Russia. You do it. You do it. We're not going to help. You just go ahead and do it. We'll support you morally, so that they can go and attack China. But they're not going to attack China. They're going to put missile bases in Philippines. They have bases in Japan, in South Korea, other places in the Pacific region, and they're going to paint targets on the back of their allies and let them be proxy warriors to fight China, or to put pressure on China if it doesn't turn into a kinetic war. But remember, kinetic wars start way before shots are fired. Um, the war has already begun because the rhetoric is so absurdly uh, warlike now that it's almost like they're trying to create a self-fulfilling prophecy. So they're going to, keep putting that in everyone's brain that it's inevitable and it has to happen for whatever reason, multipolar traps, sort of Damocles. They're going to have these ideas that if we don't have the AGI, they're going to have it. And, these are risks, but it's pedal to the metal in the global economy for every state actor and every private corporation to make bank on this fad right now, whether or not the business models are uh, doable or not. They're going to require huge data centers across the planet using lots of energy and sucking it all up. And we have no idea where it's going to go. If there's going to be alignment with values. And if there is alignment with values, whose values are the AGIs going to align with? Nobody thinks these things through very carefully. And for most of us, the whole game is a black box anyway, so we have no clue. We just know we can use an AI chatbot to do some research or whatever now, which is nice, or make an image, from text, which is nice, or video from text, which is nice. These are all lovely toys, but once the lights go out, they're gone. And you're addicted to them. You're jonesing for them. What happened to my phone? What happened to my computer? What am I going to do? Luckily, I have plenty of books around here, and I like my neighbors. So I'm not going to be upset or in withdrawal for too long. When the lights go out, I can find other things to do with my time. That the lights will go out someday. Make no mistake about that. If you think it through, you understand that. And the tech players are in it for the money. And their fantasies, whether they believe their fantasies can come true or not, most likely won't come true. We have no idea what an AGI robot's going to be up to. We have no idea what outsourcing war to AGIs is going to bring. We have no clue. But everything that we do as zero order humanists, as human supremacists, is think about how to eat up the world, how to transform it into a machine because of whatever reason you want to make, because God gave us dominion over the earth or whatever. You can come up with all kinds of rationalizations for why it's our responsibility to do whatever the heck we want to do with everything on the planet. But the fact is, when the biosphere is wrecked beyond recognition, when our ecosystems and habitats start to fail, it affects us. Whether or not we have any moral pangs or ethical pangs about what we're doing to nature, we don't care about lions, tigers, and bears. We don't care about insects and birds. We don't care about soil microbiology. We don't care about, ocean pollution or forever chemicals. We don't give a shit because out of sight, out of mind, not in my backyard type of thing. But the point is, it cares about you because you can't escape it, and neither can the billionaire oligarchs and the tech bros. What's going to get us eventually is going to get them. So we're distracted by all these, calls for war and conflict and competition, while we just continue to find ourselves in a worse position year by year. And nothing ever seems to really progress. And you would have to define what progress even means. What does it mean to progress? To have a new generation iPhone with AGI in it, applications in it, or does it mean something else? I think, progress would mean that we learn how to live on this planet ethically, morally, sustainably, lovingly, and that we are good stewards of nature and that we take care of each other in our communities and so on and so forth. Wow. But, at this scale, we can hardly do that. And manipulating billions of people, hundreds of millions of people through all of the tools that we have with information technology and so on is easy. It's easy. And people just ape and parrot what they see and hardly think about it or hardly have time to think about it. It doesn't mean they're stupid. It doesn't mean they're dumb. It just means they're focused and paying attention at the fire hose of bullshit that's coming at them all the time. So I don't know, but the grid will go down again and again and again. Climate change will see to that. Global heating will see to that. And the omnicidal heat engine we know as modern techno-industrial global financialized neoliberal capitalism will see to that, and consumerism will see to that, because we live in a finite planet that's fairly complex, but the most complex thing on this planet is us, our culture, our belief systems that fuel and create all of the mechanisms, all of the systems, and so on that are eating up our planet. So, you have the Fermi paradox and things like this, and you understand that, our likelihood of surviving this complexity is very low. All of these systems are extremely complex. They get more complex, and we're just creating more complexity to manage the complexity. And like I've said before, the AGIs and the AIs and so on are going to be generating their own data to train on. And we're not in control of that. You can firewall off various AI-enhanced systems and use them for specific purposes, for science, for medicine, whatever. But the ones that are out there in the world seeking profit, seeking to get you to buy things and do things, those things are much harder to control. So you're going to be at the mercy of this information. So the misinformation just comes. I was looking at this transcript site, It's called Transcript CNN, and they put up transcripts of reports and whatnot, so you can see. So, well, first of all, I think it's perfectly reasonable for Russian president to be clearing that ceasefire in those days and blah blah blah. Moscow, Russian cities, big preparations are being made because, of course, this year is even bigger and blah blah blah. So there's this constant chatter about, what Russia's going to do. So of course there's going to be people talking about Russia or North Korea or China. And again, it's not as if the United States of America hasn't cyber attacked complex facilities in Iran and other places. It's well known, uncontroversial, and you can get the transcripts of those events from many, many sources. So the Euro News, which is a very, mainstream Euro outlet that is out of France. Iberian Peninsula blackout sparks spread of false theories online. And it's interesting to learn about because apparently this blackout extended out into the islands of Portugal, the Azores and so on, and also parts of France and parts of North Africa. So you see how all of this is interconnected. It's a complex grid, and we should be investing in it and figuring out how to use it properly, rather than just reacting to problems. But, I haven't, this hasn't happened since I've lived here. So it's a rare event. We'll find out eventually what caused it. But this article just talks about even the Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez was, putting out some misinformation initially and then warning people about misinformation and hoaxes. And, it's like all of us say things too quickly without thinking about it on social media, and then we want to retract it and say, oops, I probably went too far. I should have shut up and been more careful. But, no evidence that the blackout was caused by a cyber attack. All this kind of thing. These like Ursula von der Leyen has not accused Russia, blah blah blah. So there were things out like that, but you wouldn't put it past them because they're constantly pointing to Russia all the time anyway. They have to convince their constituencies that building, jet fighters and bombers and tanks and drones and AI systems and targeting systems and so on to fight wars is a good investment. I think these weapons are going to wind up in a mothballed somewhere, a total waste of money and energy and time. And you better hope they're mothballed and a waste of money, because if they're not, we're fucked. So there's that. So a waste of time. We could be investing in the grid. We could be investing in housing. We could be reforming our global economy so that local people can live local lives. And then when you go visit somewhere, you'll actually be visiting a culture that's not like yours. And you won't be staying in a hedge fund's Airbnb apartment. You'll be staying in a hotel with local charm and architecture and, people who speak the language, the native language. So, anyway, direct attack on European sovereignty, signaling Russia. That's the thing, too. It's how they use language, right? If you say it's an attack on If it's an attack on European, sovereignty and all that. You're already signaling that, some actor, nefarious actor that you don't like anyway, is behind it. And it's no secret that Macron and these people are behind the rearmament and all that, trying to appease the United States and, But all of this has fallen apart anyway. It's not going to last because the period of, U.S. hegemony and the Pax Americana and all that, is coming to an end. And it's just a matter of time, only because it's just kind of outlived its practicality under the um, pressures of our time, which are different from what they were in the decades right after World War II. We're up against different problems now, and it's becoming evident, or we wouldn't see, windmills, wind turbines all over the place. If there wasn't a problem, if peak oil was just a fantasy, fake news, and so on and so forth. I mean, overshoot is a thing. People know it. So anyway, yeah, you can see they already have a Wikipedia, possible causes. Fire reported in southern France, Perpignan area was identified as a possible cause. Redes, our energy company was looking at it. And a Spanish cybersecurity agency was reported to be investigating possibility of cyber attacks caused the incident, although initial analysis did not show any evidence of the attack. So that's another thing I asked my friend. I said, ask your friendly neighborhood cybersecurity expert how long it takes to track down a cyber attack from a large, high-tech, fairly wealthy first-tier nation state. It's not, they hide that very well, these coordinated attacks. And they don't do them just willy-nilly. It takes time to plan them and to implement them and to find out who did it, right? It just doesn't happen within hours or days. You have to look into it for a while. So that possibility is still out there, right? And people are saying, we'll hold everybody accountable. It could be any kind of extremist group could have blown something up. You don't know. But if that had happened, we'd know about it really quickly because we'd see the bomb blast and the mushroom cloud. So there was tons of misinformation claiming Russia was behind it and all that stuff. And, anyway, it was a big event. It was a thing. And there you have it. These things happen. And, the weather is weird now. Call it the weather. The climate is a hyper object, super complex, beyond us in space and time, and hard to comprehend. But the weather, we can see it every day. And the temperature we can measure. We can measure a lot of things in the ocean acidity and so on, how much salt there is in the ocean and whatnot. We can measure how the ice melts. There are all kinds of normal things that we can watch and measure scientifically that can tell us what's going on in the world. And we can infer from those facts and understanding those systems what we will and what we must do and what the threats are and so on and so forth. Or we can ignore them. So many people in the United States are so religious that they really don't care. Everything to them is just, God's plan. So that's why Zionism has been such a big deal in the United States for so long, since before World War II, since the 19th century, before Israel became a state. And, these ideas that it was, prophesied in the Bible, even Christianity is tied to these prophecies. Otherwise, they don't feel that Jesus would have any legitimacy if he wasn't fulfilling prophecy, right? So it's an iteration of these stories. We want to believe the stories we want to believe because we're drawn to them, we're trained to understand them, to recognize them. We want to fit into them because of our clique, our group, whatever. But moving forward, I would say it would be better for all of us around the world to figure out how to collaborate, work together to solve problems rather than to cause problems and blame people for causing problems and scapegoat and dehumanize and all that kind of stuff. It's not going to help us because all of these real catastrophes that will come about because of the complexity of the systems that we've created. And human beings are that way. At some point, 100,000 years ago, or 75,000, or 50,000, whatever, there was a big enough population of Homo sapiens sapiens on the planet to share ideas, to trade, to learn from one another. There was, you know, stories being handed down, techniques being handed down, across generations, across time, and across cultures. And that sparked this big expansion of culture and art and tool making and so on. That was the nascent beginning of modern civilization. I don't know how far back you can go. But of course, people talk about agriculture and settled communities and so on, 8,000, whatever. You can fill in the blank on a timeline to whatever detail you want, and think about it, ponder it, and, but our networked civilization now is way beyond any form of complexity we had in the past. It's way beyond it. And we don't know how to manage it. We just don't. So we're going to be carried along this tidal wave of complex technology until it crashes against the shore, and come what may. We'll see what happens. I think we're all being trained to be preppers now. We have to prep. We have to be ready. As some people think that being ready is just knowing how to shoot an assault rifle or make a fire or hoard food or whatever. Yeah, okay, cool. I think being ready is experiencing or how would I say, revisiting intimacy. And I mean intimacy with everything, with your family, with your friends, with your community, with your place, with your customs, with your beliefs, with your stories, your people, and also with biology and physics and understanding how things work in nature, with animals, with the garden, with the forest, with the trees, the parks, and realizing how incredibly beautiful that relationship is, that intimate, intertwined, interwoven relationship is. It's so powerful and so important. And intimacy will save us, will help us when the shit hits the fan. You go down to the corner store here and you hang out with your neighbors and talk, and everything's relaxed. You tell some jokes, have a couple beers, talk about what you might have to do, no big deal, and you get through it. When we're in a city and we don't know our neighbors and we're busy running around making money and we're moving around data and information on a computer screen all day long, we've lost touch with everything. We don't know how to be intimate with nature, with our place. We're just cogs in a wheel, in a machine, and trying to make enough money to buy the best friends money can buy and to get the stuff that we think we need to fit into whatever world we find ourselves in. At the end of the day, the young people are going to come back to the small villages, and there's going to be a more intimate life. And unfortunately, after civilization crashes, there'll be much fewer people on the planet, and who knows what's going to come then. But anyway, you don't have to believe that or think about that. Overshoot, big deal. Civilizational crashes, big deal, whatever. Give me a break. It won't be until 150 years from now. Just pick a number, right? You're going to predict the future, what's happening in 6 months, 5 years, a decade, 50 years from now. You can't predict the future, but you can see the trends. You can understand how things work, and you can infer and project from there using your Bayesian reasoning or whatever, logic, and looking at the empirical evidence and various lines of evidence and so on, how things might go, probably will go. And as you look back at events, recent events and so on, and you see over the last 30 years the trends, they also bolster your understanding and your models of understanding the probabilities of what might happen in the future become better. And you start to become more clear about what the risks are, and so on and so forth. But anyway, you have no power, you can't do anything about it. But what you can do is build community, build intimacy, educate yourself a bit more. So when these shocks happen, you're ready for them, and maybe you can make yourself useful, be helpful. Uh, People are going to need people, regardless. Other than that, you get on with your day. Do what you got to do. So have a good one. Take good care. William T. out.